Welcome to 2025. I'm so happy to see you guys here again. So I've been away for a long time now. I know, yeah, I know, and I feel bad about that. So now I'm back. I really miss my YouTube channel. I miss my family here on YouTube as well. All of you. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for always coming back, and also thank you for all those ones that checked up on me. I think most persons have direct contact with me, so they were able to check up and know how I'm doing. But I'm so happy, right? So now I'm back with amazing videos. Okay. So if you're happy to see me back, drop a comment, anything, and also drop any video you want me to tweet going forward, right? So in this video, we'll walk through building a custom search delegate for a Flutter app. This search delegate is going to integrate seamlessly into your app, providing features like recent search, search suggestion, and customizable theming. That's if you're using dark theme and light theme, but we are not going to go in depth into light theming and dark theme. It can be a later video, right? So that's it. See you in the video. So before we start, what is Search Delegate? A Search Delegate in Flutter provides a way to add a built-in search experience to your app. So Search Delegates mostly includes an action button, right? Like a search to clear the search, like a query that you're entering to clear it. You also have a leading widget. So you can use it to show a back button or a menu icon. Then we have this suggestion method to dynamically show suggestions based on user input. Then we also have results. So the search results, it's what is going to display the query, like whatever the user enters. If we have that query in our database or in our list, then it's going to display under that result. Okay. So as you can see here, we just have a dummy Flutter project. Nothing has been added. It's just right when you create a new boilerplate code, you just have all this. So we're not going to be changing much. What I'm going to do is just to change this guy to search. Okay, so instead of this increment counter, we don't need this. So what it's going to do is just going to take us to the search delegate screen. Okay, so here we can have this guy. Okay, go to search delegate. All right. So in order to work with search delegate, remember I told you guys that we are going to be adding recent searches, okay, and search suggestions. So to display that recent searches, we need to use a local DB to store what users have queried before into the database. So whenever they return back to the app, they will be able to see what those previous queries. So for that to happen, we are going to be using shared preferences. So first thing you want to do is to go to your console, right? I believe we already know what shared preference is. If you go to pub.dev and search, you're going to see what search preference is about. So here I'm just going to say Flutter pub add shared preferences. Okay, that's one thing that we need to add. And secondly, we also need to add provider, because I'll be using that provider to manage the states, right? So it's going to make it look easier for me, okay, and also for you, depending on any state management library that you're using. Remember, all state management, they are just similar, right? If you can use one, just give yourself like one or two trials, like examples, you'll be able to use others as well. So they are just similar. So here I'm going to add Flutter pub add provider. Okay. So here, if you go to our pubspec.yaml file, you will notice that our shared preference has been added and also our provider has been added. So the next thing I want to do, we have our lib folder, we have our main. Remember, I'm not going to be doing much inside this main file, so it's just going to stay like that. Okay, but when we click on this search, it's going to take us to the search delegate screen. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create a folder and I will call this folder search. So inside this search folder, I have a provider, okay? And here I also have my delegate, or you can call it screen, whatever. But let's just say search screen, or let's just call it view rather. So inside here, we have our search screen, okay? Search view dot that. And secondly, we have our provider. So before I move on, I would like to set up the provider first. Remember, when you're using provider package, you need to have your change notify, let's just say class search provider, and you need to extend change notifier. Okay, so for you to be able to use this search provider in your UI, you will need to set it up in your main.dat. So inside here, what I'm going to do, where we have our material app, I'm going to wrap this material app with a provider. Okay, so I think I can just copy this. Let me just remove this like this and return change notifier provider. And inside here, I have my crate. Let's say we have our contest. I don't know if this is the right one. Okay, yeah, then we have a search provider. And inside here, we have our child. I will now go ahead and return our material app, okay? But if you're using more than one search provider, remember in my previous videos, I've talked about this a lot. If you're using more than one provider, you shouldn't use change notifier provider. Rather, you should use multi-child provider. I think it's more like takes a list, multi-provider, yeah. It takes a list of change notifier provider. So you want to check out my previous videos to see how I implemented them. All right, so now we have this and you can see everything looks good. And if you run the app, you can see that it's not showing any error, yeah? So that's it for the main.dat. So you can close that screen because we don't need it anymore. So now our focus will be on our search screen, okay? But before we go on with the search screen, remember in this tutorial, we are not going to be using Firebase or anything with our data in it. So I decided to use a dummy string, list of string that we are going to use as our search list to search data. So what I'm going to do here, I'll still put it inside the search provider. So let's just have search data, okay? So this is going to be all the strings data that we want to show. In your case, it's going to be different because you might be searching in your database. You might be searching anywhere, and the format is not going to be a string. It might be a list of map, it might be a model or whatever. But with what I'm going to show you in this video, you should be able to combine those ideas together and do whatever you want to do in your Firebase backend or whatever, okay? So now we have this SearchDelegate. For now, let's just leave it the way it is. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go back to my search view. So inside here, I will create a class and I'll call this custom SearchDelegate. All right, and I'm going to extend SearchDelegate. Okay, so this SearchDelegate is going to give us access to a lot of things. So extend it, you can see now it's showing, asking us to add the missing implementations. So just click on it, click on this light bulb if you are using VS Code. I believe Android Studio will have a way for that as well, okay? I think something like Command Shift O or Control Shift O, something like that. So I can't really remember. So just click on those create for missing overrides. It's going to create all the missing override. So remember in the beginning of this video, I talked about building action, right? I also talked about building action. I also talked about building leading, and I talked about suggestions and build results, okay? So let me just do a brief recap. Build actions, we can use it to show the clear search icon, like to clear the query. Build leading, we can use it to show the back button or the menu icon or whatever icon we want to show there, right? And then we have the suggestion. You can use it to show the suggestion based on user input, okay? And we are going to be saving them inside shared preference. Then we have our results, the search results displayed after we query, okay? So let's get into it. First thing first, I'm going to navigate user to this screen whenever they click, okay? I know it's going to show some errors and all that, but it's fine. We are going to get it done, all right? Let's go to the icon that will trigger the search. So inside here, what I'm going to do is to say show search, right? And it takes a context. It takes two parameters, more than two parameters, right? So the first one is the context, which is required, and it has the search delegate, which is the delegate screen that we want to navigate to the user to, okay? Because you can have more than one delegate screen, so you know what to do there. Then query, which you can just set the default query whenever user moves into that screen. Whatever search you want user to search, this can just be the default. But by default, you can see is an empty string, okay? So we don't have much issues. And the last one is the use route navigator, all right? Default is set to false. So here we are going to call the name of our search screen, which is custom search delegate. So right here, we are going to put our custom search delegate and make sure you import it here. And that's pretty much it. You don't need to do anything because our search delegate has no parameters, so we are good to go, okay? So while that is done, let's just save this. I always like to see my debug console to know when there's error and all that. So I'm going to toggle to that tab. So here I'm going to click on this icon. You can see now it's showing us the screen, but they are showing errors because we have not implemented any widget to show, because currently we are just returning an error. So this error is expected because of what we are doing. All right, so next we are going to build the action button. So what I want to do here is to return a list, because you know when you're working with app bar and you have your action, you also, it's in form of a list, right? It's in form of a list. So I have this auto suggestion stuff, so I'll just click my tab and it will generate the search for me. So here I don't want to work with search, but rather I want to work with clear, okay? This is still showing error because we have not implemented the leading, okay? So for the leading, we are just, let's say we want to use an animation, because when user goes back, comes back, we want to see that nice animation to it. So I'm going to use an icon button here. Okay, and let's have our icon. So I'll use animated icon. And we have icon, which is going to be animated icons.menu.arrow, right? Then progress, there's a built-in transition animation in Flutter, so I'll be using that. And finally, we have the onPressed method. So what this onPressed method is going to do, whenever we user clicks on this menu arrow to go back, we are going to show close. So this close is also a method that is available whenever you extend search delegates, okay? So you don't need to bother. Then the result, since we are not returning any result back to the search delegates, feel free to just use an empty string because it's taking a string there, like a dynamic result. So I'm going to use that, all right? So still a lot of things are still showing errors for us because we need to implement build results. We also need to implement build suggestion. So to fix this error, I will just return normal. Let's just call this a string and I will say build results. All right. And for suggestion, I will just put suggestion. All right. So don't worry, we are coming back to this to fix it up. So if we go back and you can see when we come, you can see how it's animating. You can see how that stuff is rotating. So it's cool. It's basically what we want to achieve, okay? So you can see by default, the icon, the text input field, has this action of search. Okay, so there's no point adding any button here to search. Whenever user just finish typing, they can click on search, and you can see build result is showing. Okay, so that's pretty much it. And now what we want to achieve is whenever user enters a string and search, okay, if they return back and come back, we want to show that we send suggestions based on what they have previously searched. Just like YouTube, when you go to YouTube, you see your previously searched queries. Okay, and this one is for clearing, just to clear what you are typing. Okay, this is not working. All right, so I've not implemented clear. So I'm supposed to implement clear, which is setting query to an empty string. So query is also part of this search delegate. Okay, so when you set query to an empty string, see what happens. It clears it for you automatically. Okay, all right, so that's pretty much it for those guys. And the next thing I want to do now is to build results and also to add recent searches whenever users search something. So first thing first, let's implement recent search. Okay, so I'm going to go to search provider, and inside here, I'm using my shared preference already, so it's going to make things easier for us. But first of all, I want to show us how to do it without shared preference, just like using a normal list. All right, so what I'm going to do here is to have a list of string, and I will call these search results, or no, let me call these recent searches. All right, and I'll do the same thing. Let me just create a getter for it, and okay, recent search. And what I'm going to do here, and I'm going to add two methods. One is to add research search, and the other one is to get, let's say, clear recent search. Yeah, if we want that, we need to be able to clear the recent search, or we can say remove recent search. I think that one makes sense. It makes more sense. Instead of clear means we are removing everything, but remove, it's more like we are removing a particular one. Okay, so we also have to get recent searches. Get recent searches by 10. Okay, all right, so that's pretty much it. And what we are going to do next now is pretty simple. So to add recent search, first thing I want to do, we have the search term, right, or the query, whatever you call it. So first, I want to convert them to lowercase. Whatever the user is entering, let it be a lower value. Okay, so let's convert the search term to lowercase. Okay, so once that is done, we are going to check if, let's check if the search term is already in the recent search. I think there's something wrong here. Okay, we're going to check if the search term is in the recent search. So if it contains lower value, if it contains no, I think it should be, if it doesn't contain lower value, then we'll go ahead and add recent searches dot add the lower value. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much it to add recent search. And once we do this, what we are going to do next is to save to shared preference. That if we want to persist the data whenever the user closes the screen and returns back. Okay, which is something we are going to do while we are moving forward. Okay, the next thing we are going to do is to get the recent search here. Once you save it, we need to get it. I think that's mostly for when we are working with shared preference, but it's best we just still call the recent search by term or whatever. Okay, it shouldn't be to get it by term, because recent search basically is just going to return a list. Okay, so we don't need to search it by term, just get recent searches. Okay, so we don't need by term, so to just fetch everything, all the list, and then display it as a suggestion to the user. All right, so next thing we are going to do now is to remove recent search. It's just similar thing with what we already have here. So we'll just duplicate this into this recent search, and instead of having our search them, what we are going to do, when you want to remove, because we are removing individual search, right? So if it contains it, we are going to remove it from the list. All right. Once we do that, we can now update the list and save it into shared preference. Okay. And then we get recent search. So that's pretty much it. And then lastly, we are going to get the recent search. Basically, recent search is going to come from the shared preference. So we don't really need to do much. Get it from shared preference. Okay. So this is where we are just going to get all the list from shared preference. And once we get it, we are going to update the screen. So let me show you something. If we go back to our search view, where we have our search delegates, builder rather. So what I'm going to do is to create an instance of our search provider. So I'm going to go under our build results right here. I'm going to have a final search provider, and here we have our context.read, and we have our search provider. Okay, so now what we can do is to check if the query is not empty. So this is going to trigger whenever user clicks on search. Okay, if query is not empty, what we are going to do is to call search provider dot add recent search, and then we can just pass in the query to it as the search term. Simple. Then we go ahead and show the builder. That's just it, nothing much. So now I will just do a hot restart. Okay, and if we go back here, if we search anything, click search, it's going to save now to the list. Okay, but we can't really see it because we have not implemented the build suggestion that whenever we go back, it's supposed to show. So to implement the build suggestion and also add a button to delete recent, like to remove recent searches, what we are going to do now is to go down to our build suggestion, and inside here I'm going to do the same thing. I'll create an instance of SearchDelegate because I don't know if it's possible to create that here. It's not possible because we don't have access to context, and I don't want to pass it through the constructor. Yeah, it should make sense. So here I will have to create another SearchDelegate. Okay, then first thing I want to do is to say final suggestion, because I need to filter the suggestion. Okay, let's say we have our suggestions. I'm going to check if query.is empty, right? What I want to do, I want to return all the recent searches if it's empty. So we have recent searches, but if it's not empty, I'm going to get the recent searches where the search query matches the query that the user is trying to search. So we have to get recent searches dot where, let's say, our search query, whatever user is searching, where search, okay, that contains let's say contains query. Okay, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And we can convert it to a list because it's more like an iterable. So let's convert that to a list. But it's also best for everything to be good, make sure you convert the search query to a lowercase, okay, because we're already saving it as a lowercase into the recent searches. So it's best we also handle the same thing. Then moving forward, I'm going to remove this guy. So since this suggestion is a list of string, I'm going to be using a list view builder. Okay, and we have our item builder that will basically have our context and our index. Okay, so next thing we want to do is to have our item count. So item count is going to be the suggestion.length. Whatever the suggestion length is, that's what we are going to display to the user. Then finally, we need to have suggestion equal to suggestion and get the index of each individual suggestions. Okay. Then what I want to do is to return a list die. Okay. And we have a leading. So basically, I want to show this icon for showing, let's say, like icons.history. All right. And then we have title. Basically, the title is going to be a test widget with suggestion, right? So we have to add our untap method. So what happens when user taps on that? We need to call the query. Let's search the query into the suggestion, and then we can just show results ASAP. Okay. So this show results is acting like this search. Whenever you click, you type something and click on search, it triggers the show results method. Okay. So that's the same thing that this is going to do for us. See, now is showing the recent search, the previous stuff we added before. So let's say hi. Okay, and you search, nothing. If you go back and return back, you see that hi is showing. And now you can see that the search icon, history icon is showing there. Pretty much amazing. It's pretty much amazing. So the next thing we are going to do now is to add a trailing icon so that users should be able to delete the icon. So let's have our trailing icon. So I'll be using a gesture detector and on tap. And inside here we have our child icons dot let's say clear. All right. So this is pretty much it. You can see how it's looking nice. And for clear, we are just going to call the search provider to remove recent searches, and then we can pass in the suggestion. Okay, that's pretty much it. And next, what we are going to do here, I want this guy to extend a little bit, so I'll be adding content padding. I don't really think that is necessary, but let's see how it reflects there. Let's say we have agent sets dot only. Let's add left to be 14 and right to be 10. So I want it to sync together with this one. I just hope it works. Cool. So this is amazing. So now if we click here, you can see when we click, okay, nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. Let's go back to our search provider and see whenever we call our remove. All right, so we are not calling notify listener to this guy. So notify listener is more like to update the UI whenever there's any change. All right, so let me search something else. Hi. Let me just search random test. Search, saves, it goes back, and when we return, you can see this is showing error because of our search results. So don't worry, we are going to fix that. Okay, so from here, so next thing we are going to do now is to persist the data whenever user comes to the screen. Okay, we need to be able to see the data from shared preference. All right, so that will help us to set list and remove and get list. Okay, so let's just say we are going to have this get list from itself, which is more like shared preference. So we need to have a key, right? But before we do that, make sure we need to create instance of shared preference. Okay, so it's going to be shared preferences.instance. Okay, the first thing we need to create the value for it. Let's say sp right, and we are going to call await. All right, so inside here, since we are getting list from sp, we are going to return let's call this instead, it's supposed to be a list, future list of string. Okay, so here we are going to call think I'm making a mistake. Okay. So we're going to call sp, right, dot get string list, and we are going to pass the key, which is from there. Then most times this can return null and all that. So if it's null, we can just handle it by returning an empty list. So secondly, we are going to have something else to say save list to self. So we have our string, which is the key, and we also have our value that we want to save. So we're going to do the same thing. Instead of get, we are doing set string list, and here we are going to set the key, and also we are going to set the value. All right, and make sure you use a wait. We don't need to return anything, and this can just be void. Cool. So that's pretty much it for this guy. And now we are going to create the shared preference key here. Remember, I'm just putting everything inside my shared search provider. But in your case, depending on the kind of app you're creating, to maintain consistency and also make it much more cleaner and readable, it's better you create maybe a shared class for shared preference, and also you can create a string for what I want to do now, which is for the key. Okay, so we can call this search key. So you want to make sure that you create a constant string where you're saving all your keys and all that. So we can just call this last search key. Okay, so you'll be asking, why do I even need to add the string if I already have it there? No problem, I can remove it and just set it directly, right? So but if you plan to use this method outside in another class entirely, I would advise you that you add the string as a parameter, okay, to the method. So here we have our get recent search and save to shared preferences. So basically what we are going to do here is just to call save list to shared preference, and then we'll pass the value. The value is just going to be the recent search. Simple. Then get recent search. What we are going to do for get recent search is simple. We are just going to call the method to get the recent search for us. So first thing first, let's go to our recent search, and inside here we are just going to create value, and let's call this await get recent search. Make sure this is an asynchronous method, and then we call recent search equal to value. Okay, something is wrong. Okay, it's final, so we need to remove that final there. So once we do that, we can now go ahead and call notify listener. All right, so let's do a hot restart here. So now we are going to go back to our search screen. So let me just search hello, save it. You can see now missing plugin exception. Okay, so when we added the shared preference, we did not restart the app, so just give me a few minutes. All right, so I just restarted the app now, and we are back. So let's go back and search. So let's say hello, search, build results, no error. Okay, so we can go back and return back to the screen. Okay, so I didn't see any search results there. Okay, let's see what we are missing. Let us see what we are missing. Okay, so nothing is returning for us, so I feel we are missing something here. So first we are getting list from itself, right, and awaiting the results and all that. So let's see, let's print it out here to see what the value is going to be, if it's actually returning, and then we know how to tackle that. So get recent search. Oh, too bad, we are not saving it. So we're actually saving it in the wrong place. Not really the wrong place, it's the right place, but we also need to save it here whenever we are adding. So I think that's the problem. We didn't call the save method there as well. So I'm going to go back and let's return and say hello. Right? You can see the value hello. Let's call in because we have this print method. So it's working perfectly. So let's go back and return. You can see now it's showing. We can say hi, save. You can see now we have two values. You go back, whenever you enter again, you're going to see the results. Now we can clear. Okay, it's clearing, but for some reason it's not updating immediately. So that's one problem that we need to fix, and it only updates when we save, which shouldn't be the case. So I wonder what is causing this. Let me investigate further.
A few moments later.
To fix this, what we are going to do now, let's say we just have a search, okay, build results, and we go back. We should see the result here, right? So now we are trying to like remove this, trying to battle, how to remove this and all that. But so far it's not removing, but it's removing here, right? So what I discovered is that we are using read. So when we are using read, we are only getting it once. We are not listening to the changes, okay? So to get that sorted, what I did, change it to watch. So what watch does, it's more like listening to the changes. Whenever there is any modification in search provider, is going to update it for us. So that's what we used. And so I'm going to use this, and let's go back, come back here, also save this, right? Go back, come back here. You can see if we click on clear, it's removing immediately. Okay, so that's one way to fix that. So and next thing again I saw is more like, I think we need to remove is when we are removing, there's no point converting to lowercase again because we're already doing that. This is already in lowercase, right? So we just have to pass the search term directly and get what we want. Okay. Then next thing we need to do is when we are removing, there's no point calling notify listener because it's more like let the get recent search do that for us. Okay, so let's see how it works, and we are going to save, go back, and here. So here we can just clear. Okay, so let me see if this data is persisting by doing a hot restart. Let's see what happens. So I just did a hot restart, and let's go back. Looks like it's not persisting. So the reason why it's not persisting is because we are not calling this get recent searches anywhere. Okay, whenever the user comes to this screen for the first time. So we need to figure out a way to do that. And one way I think we can do that is when user comes to this build suggestion, we can just first of all, we can check if query dot is if it's empty, then we can just search provider dot get recent searches. All right, so this should fix it. So whenever we go back, let's do a hard restart. Okay, if we go here, once it's empty, we are going to see that list. Okay, so now next we want to do now is to search through this list. I know this video is getting long and I don't want it to be like that, so let me quickly wrap this up so that we'll be done with it. So here now we have to create a search that will help us to filter this search and return a result for us. Okay, so for that to be done, we'll be doing that with our build results. Okay, so inside our build results right here, I'm going to have a method that we'll call, let's call this search. Okay, so the search is going to have our search term, right? It's going to have our search term. I think it's just something we need to call whenever we call in add recent search. We need to also call the method, right, to search. All right, so inside here now, what I'm going to do is to call search recent search. This is the name. We're also going to convert it to lowercase and all that. So first thing I want to do is to convert whatever the user is passing inside into a lower value. So here I'm going to check if this search basically should return, I think it should return a list or string. All right. So what I'm going to do here now is more like to return, let's say if lower value, let's just, instead of lower value, let's say if search term. So this one way I want to handle this. If it's empty, so what we are going to do is just to return the search data. So I need to make this to be only accessible inside this file. So return the search data s. We're going to return search data where the s, let's say name, right? Or let's call it data, where data, the lowercase, contains this value. All right. So that's pretty much it. And since it's a feature of search, we are good to go. So what I'm going to do is, let's say I'm going to create another one, which is more like search data and all that. So let's call this, we can use a feature builder if you want. So let's use a feature builder to just implement this and make it faster. So when we come to our build result here, I'm going to be using watch so that we are going to be getting the data real time while it's changing. So inside here, I'm going to be using a feature builder, right? It's been a while I used feature builder. So, but let's see. I can't remember the last time I used this guy, but I believe you need to put that here. Then we have our search provider dot search, and the search term is going to be the query, whatever the query is. Okay. Then we have our builder. I'm glad I still remember this stuff though. That's been a long time. I think there's an error. Okay, value, this should be the value, snapshot value, I believe. Yeah, that should be the snapshot value. So inside here, what I'm going to do is to return let's say if value dot has data. Okay, if it has data, we can just go ahead and return a list view, right? The value should be value dot data dot length, but if it's no issues, we are going to return an empty string. I don't know if this is, we're just going to return 0, right? But it's best you handle it, right? If value dot data dot length, let's say if value has data and value the data is not equal to null, yeah, we go ahead and if value the data that is empty, so if it's empty, we can just go ahead and return no result found. Okay, so that will tell user that okay, what you're searching is not available. All right, and secondly, if is available, we can just go ahead and return this other one. Okay, but one thing is remaining, which is this. So while there's no data or whatever, we need to return a loading indicator. So you might want to like show a proper loading indicator and also move this to the center as a center widget. We are also going to do the same thing here, moving it to the center widget. And here, since we are already checking for null and all that, so we don't need to fear anything here. Okay, we can just use this exclamation directly. Then this title should just show the result, and this print, whenever user taps on it, we can do whatever we want to do, like taking the user to a new screen or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to do a hot restart for this, and let's go back. So here, let's just search something that doesn't exist. Let's say, because looking at this our search query, you can see we are using names. Okay, let me use you can see destiny ed is not here, so let me use destiny and search. We should have something like no result found, right? Which is pretty much it. If we go back and come back again, we are going to see that destiny search query, no result found. Cool. So now I want to use real data that is here, which is, let's use Steven. Steven. All right. And search, you can see Steven is showing because we already have that search result. The reason why it's showing this search icon is because if you look here, you can see that we have this search icon. So if you want to make it more better, you can have a trailing icon that can just be like arrow forward, right? Just to tell user that, hey, you can go forward after searching. And we also need to add a proper padding to it because you can see how there's a space here. So I don't want that to be like that. So I'm going to be using the same method that I use for the build suggestion. Cool. So when you search, you can see results tab Steven. So this is going to take user to any screen that you want. So if we go back and come back, it's going to show Steven as your previously searched result. So when you click, you can see Steven is also showing as a result. If you click the one that doesn't exist, it's going to show Destiny. All right. So that's all for this video. I think I'm going to end it here. The video is already long. Okay. So thank you so much, guys, for